Good morning. I am Jonathon Woodruff. I am a 3L at Campbell School of Law, and I'm the president of the Black Law Student Association. They asked me to come here today to introduce one of our phenomenal guest speakers, but they told me I got a couple of minutes to tell a story first. So I was supposed to start law school on the 17th of August in 2015. On the 16th of August 2015, I was driving down 40. Somebody tried to merge right into my truck. I flipped my truck 3 times from one side of I-40 to the other. Woke up on the grass on the side of the highway, didn't know what was going on. And the first thing I thought about was, I got property at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and I ain't done my reading yet. I would have gone home and done it, but as soon as my mama found out, she drove up to Raleigh, went to my apartment, packed up my stuff, and sent me back home for 3 days. I got to school, I was behind, I hadn't done any reading. The meds they had me on had me sleeping all the time, so I really didn't know what to do. And I would have drowned probably. I probably would not be a 3L right now if it wasn't for the people I met over the summer. The Black Law Student Association, they took me in, they gave me notes, they gave me outlines, gave me guidance on different professors, let me know how to handle things, told me what to do. I became president of the Black Law Student Association because I want to give back that same kind of experience to my incoming 1Ls. I came here to speak to you all because, for one, I'm just happy so many people who look like me are trying to go to law school. And for two, because I would hope that there's something that I could contribute to this success to make sure that you all have successful law school careers. But y'all didn't come here to listen to me talk, so I'm going to go ahead and do what they asked me to do. We have with us today a very phenomenal woman. She's a native of Queens, New York. She is a double Eagle. She graduated from my undergraduate institution, North Carolina Central University, as undergrad and from law school. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Her legal career includes working for the mayor's office in Chapel Hill, being executive at Duke University. She was the director of government and community relations at Fayetteville State, which she then left to become the Assistant Vice President of Federal Relations for the University of North Carolina School System. She is a wonderful woman and a great attorney. Please help me welcome Mrs. Emily Dickens.
I'm really honored to be here. I'm still trying to figure out how they found me. So, but I'm excited to be here because law school is an amazing undertaking. You're going to experience things that you've never experienced. You're going to meet people from different backgrounds, even more different than when you began matriculating in undergraduate. And it's going to be something you never forget. But I'll also say it's one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. And while you're doing one of the hardest things you're ever going to do, you're going to also have to keep your eyes on the prize, which is what's going to happen post-law school. Because the worst thing is for me to see the stories about people who are graduating with a lot of law school debt and then are unable to pay off that debt later on because they've not found a job or a career that can help them pay off that debt. Amen? The next worst thing is to hear people who say that they are going to law school, they went to law school to make a lot of money. So it's hard, right? Because you got to pay off these loans, right? So I don't want anyone in here to say today that your goal is to go to law school to make a whole lot of money. Because if that's the case, I really want you to reevaluate that. There are a limited number of firms in this country. There are a limited number of associates positions in this country. And everyone is not going to get out making 6 figures. And you have to be okay with that when you enter law school. Because sometimes slow and steady is better than quick and dirty. And so I want you to remember that. What I want to do today is leave you with, I've got 6 tips that I want to talk to you about. Oh, I love that. Everybody started like they were going to write. Okay, all right. But first I'll tell you a little bit about myself, because I don't know if you got our bio, so I'll say thank you again for the introduction. Today, my title is Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Chief Relationship Officer for the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We are a 30-year-old organization that represents the interests of the 47 historically Black publicly funded institutions in this nation. So usually that are your state universities, or if you're a private institution that receives a lot of money from the federal government, like Howard and Tuskegee, you're a member of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And by day, I get to do something I never thought I would do when I entered law school all those years ago. And I'm all right with that. And I think you all need to be all right with your experiences leading you down a path that you can never envision today. We're all A personalities. Law students, people who go to law school, we're A personalities. We like to control everything. And the one thing you're going to have to be okay with is not controlling it and letting things come to you. And I think if you come up with your own mantra and you have these 3 or 4 things that you live by and you just let things come to you, sometimes some great things will come to you. So I'm a native of Queens, New York. I'm a first generation student, so first in my family to go to college. And my mother had to convince my dad to let me go away to school because my cousin went to school. She went off to Howard. She did not come back with a degree and came back with a lot of drama. And so my dad was convinced, and she's 5 years older, so he was convinced that his oldest child was not going to go away, so he couldn't keep an eye on her. But my mother, being the mother that she is she convinced him that they had raised me and I was going to go away. And the 2 schools I wanted to go to were Spelman and North Carolina Central University. And my dad said, well, I can get to her in a day by car if something bad happens at Central. I can't get to Atlanta, and we don't know anybody in Atlanta. My dad's family was from North Carolina, and so that is how I ended up at North Carolina Central University. And my mother and I took a Greyhound bus from 42nd Street to Durham, North Carolina. And then the bus station in Durham, North Carolina was like this old gas station, and literally. And my mother left me, and that was my first time seeing Central's campus. So we didn't have money for me to come to new student orientation or any of that. All I knew was the brochure and the sloping hills and verdant green that they talked about in the brochure, and that was going to be my school. And my mom dropped me off in the dorm, and our dorm mother said, oh, we'll make sure she's going to be okay, and we're going to, and if she does something she's not supposed to do, we'll call you. That's when they still called the parents. And my mother got right back on that bus, and we cried and cried, and she had to go back home. I have 2 younger sisters, and my parents were actually facing eviction at that time. And the thing she left me with was, your job is to go to school and finish school and not worry about what's going on at home. We'll take care of home. And I say that because so many of our students who come from situations that you don't control, right? You want to fix everything. I'm the eldest child. You want to be the fixer. And you think you being there is going to help things. And there's nothing you can do but do better. And you've been placed in a situation so many other kids want to get out and do better. And you get pulled back in so easily. And then, I went to school in the late 90s. So my ex-boyfriend and I joked, we were like, we probably would have been together then because we could have done email and text messages and all that stuff. Everybody just had pagers in the late 90s. People who could afford, we had pagers. But really, then you couldn't be pulled back as much because you had to pay to find the calling card and you had to do all this stuff. But now it's so much easier for you to be pulled back into what's going on at home. And you got to learn that if you've been given this opportunity, you have to move forward and do what you're supposed to do and hope that whatever you accomplish will help bring everybody with you once you got your stuff together. So that's one thing. So that's my story. And that's my mother told me to do that, and I did that. And my parents, I'm so happy. My dad passed away earlier, August 6th. So earlier this summer, my dad passed away. And the one thing I can take away is that his faith in my mother saying that we trained our child to go forward and do better and do what we're supposed to do, that it was well placed. And he left here proud of his oldest child, proud of both of and of my younger sisters, and that he did what he was supposed to do for us. And all you want is your parents and those that invest in you to be proud. But you don't owe anyone anything. You just owe it to yourself and to do better and to make the most of this opportunity. So if you get the opportunity to attend law school, you gotta focus. There's so many other things that are gonna pull at you. You gotta focus on that opportunity. You gotta focus on getting in and getting out. Because it's not just about you then. It's also about your school. The school you go to is judged on how well you do when you're there. Retention rates, graduation rates, bar passage. So while you're focusing on being a good law student and doing well, you got to think about what happens next. You can't forget about the fact that you need 3 months to study for a bar exam, because you will need every bit of those 3 months. You can't forget about the fact that you need to be developing relationships so that people will know you and know who you are as you're applying for jobs. And you can't think that you're just going to land the job, the creme de la creme job as an associate making 6 figures coming right out of school. I don't care how good it is, how you're that one minority that's there at your predominantly white law school and they're doing everything for you. It's just not going to always happen for you, and that's okay. But you got to have a plan. So I'm asking you to do a lot, but I'm telling you right now, this is it. If you don't do that, right? If you don't focus on the end game while you're doing well, while you're in it, then you're going to be that person I read about and hear about all the time about, I've graduated from law school, I got a law degree, and I can't get a job. And the other thing is, you don't have to get a job that everybody says lawyers should do. I can tell you there was no way you were going to get me in a courtroom. I did really well in moot court. I enjoyed it, had a lot of good friends in there, loved moot court, right? But I knew that I didn't want to do that day in and day out. And I was okay with that. And I was okay looking at alternative ways to use a law degree. Just like people who get an MBA and all other types of professional degrees, this is a professional degree. And there are lawyers today who are running Congress, some not so well, who are running mayor's offices all over the country. There are lawyers today that are CEOs at Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. And they never saw the inside of a courtroom any day after law school. So broaden your horizons. Don't let people put you in a box and tell you what you're supposed to do. It was so funny when I got out of law school and I went to go work for the mayor of Chapel Hill. And my mother would tell people, you know, Emily's a lawyer, she got out of law school. And she would have to explain to them because they couldn't grasp the concept that I had this degree and I was supposed to be a lawyer, but I was doing legislative and community affairs in a mayor's office. They couldn't see outside that box that they, in their mind, they think that lawyers should do. So think outside the box always. There is always more for you. You should always want more for yourself than what other people are saying for you. It is amazing to me how people always try to tell me what my next job should be. And I'll never forget, I was vice president of public, another job I have is vice president of public policy for the Association of Governing Boards. And I went back to homecoming. This is something I met my husband in college, so we rarely go back to homecoming. When you live in Durham, and homecoming is in Durham at Central, everybody thinks they could stay at your house. So we go dark at homecoming. Like, we don't answer phones, we don't do anything. But it was his major his line's anniversary, so we go back to homecoming, and a classmate says to me, "Oh, Emily, you know, I think you should come back and be provost here or chair of the history department here." And in my head, I'm thinking, dude, you do know I'm vice president of a national higher education association. And at the time, I was the only black vice president. So in my head, I'm thinking, he thinks it's really big for him. But in my head, I was like, no. And that's okay, because not that those jobs aren't great jobs, but for me and where I saw myself, I was like, okay, thank you. And I already knew I was about to take this job and be a senior VP. So in my head, I was already here. So don't let people box you in what they think you should be doing just because you have a JD behind your name. There is just so many opportunities. And don't do this. People are now saying, oh, higher education is a waste. You're hearing it. You're seeing the articles. We're investing too much in higher education. Come on, people. We always have to be 10 times better than everybody else. So don't get caught up in what they're saying is okay for the average Joe. You were never the average Joe. When you came out the womb and you were a little brown than everybody else, you were never the average Joe. So don't get caught up in what people are saying is good for everybody else, right? For you, we have to have more and do more. But the sky is the limit once you have that education. People complain about student loans. Look, I know I'm going to be paying student loans until both my houses will be paid for before I finish paying my student loans. I'm all right with that, right? Because here's the one thing I got with those student loans. I got an education and a skill set that you can never take away from me. So you got to think about your ROI. And so I hear kids now saying, oh, I don't want to take out a loan. Look, don't take out a loan so you can get the newest Gucci bag that I don't have and I work. Don't do that, right? But if you're going to take out a loan for education that is reasonably priced, right? And that's the other thing. Let's think about that. That is reasonably priced. Once you have that education, it is just so important. And no one can take that away from you except maybe an Alzheimer's diagnosis, right? If we really think about it. So think big picture. So here are my 6 top rules, I guess. Always be prepared. And that doesn't always mean have a 6-page speech written or something like that. Always have your go-to. Be prepared, because you never know when you're going to be called on the spot. I'm in meetings some days and it gets so boring, and I know my boss does this. Out of the blue, he'll ask a question, because this is what he does. And if you've ever met my boss, Johnny Taylor Jr., he's a lawyer too, so we go back and forth in the office all the time. And I'll look like I'm not paying attention, and then he'll call on me and say, well, Emily, what do you think about that, right? You always got to have that something you can reach for in the back of your mind. So that means you've always got to be reading, you've always got to be learning something new. It doesn't stop when school stops. And you got to be reading about things outside of what you do every day. The Thurgood Marshall College Fund is a higher ed association, but number one, we're a business. And we're entrepreneurial. And students like you depend on us to make sure we find different forms of revenue so that you can stay in school and you can find good jobs. So I couldn't go in there using what I used when I worked on Fayetteville State or when I worked for the state of North Carolina, because I don't have to raise money when I work for the state. Your taxes give me the revenue I need to do what I do. But when you got to work in an organization that has to raise the dollars to keep the doors open and to do other things and give money to other people, you have to think totally differently. And that meant what I read every day, I don't read higher education stuff every day. I read stuff about running a business, developing partnerships and relationships, so that I'm always prepared if I walk into a room and I see an opportunity to make the best of it. So saying always be prepared is about more than just having the right clothes on and having your hair done and having your standard speech. It's always be ready when an opportunity comes, because you never know when an opportunity is going to come. And my example of this is, well, I'll do one more thing and then I'll tell you the example, because it'll go for both of that. So the next one is, don't be afraid to shine. And so when you do your work, and when you're that student that's always prepared, you're that person that's always prepared, guess what? People notice. And it's okay for people to notice you. And you can be humble and still have people notice you, right? So it's not being arrogant, it's not being, it's okay to shine. If you know it, do it well, do it right. And so this is how it combines my first two, being prepared and not being afraid to shine. In law school, I was a member of the Sports and Entertainment Law Society. I'm a huge sports fan. My dad had 3 girls. We watched Yankees and Mets and the Knicks. Like, we are huge sports fans. So I joined the Sports and Entertainment Law Society thinking maybe I might want to work in the sports industry. And one of our advisors was law partner with the mayor of Chapel Hill. He decided that he wanted a newly minted attorney to help run his office. He had gone to the city council, because you all know, well, if you know anything about North Carolina, we're a manager-led city. So really the manager runs day-to-day, the mayors are part-time. And some cities have full-time staff. He decided he wanted a full-time staff person. He'd gone to the city council, gotten the money to do it. And so she was never my professor. She just knew me from my time volunteering as a student member of the Entertainment and Sports Society. She also knew that I was an evening student who worked full-time at Duke, and she knew I'd worked for 2 vice presidents there helping to run their offices. So one day she says to me, my law partner is the mayor of Chapel Hill. He wants to hire a full-time aide to help run his office. I think you'll be a good person. I don't, to this day, don't know why she thought I would be a good person. But here is someone who only saw me maybe once a month at our club meetings that I knew of, right? But it turns out she knew me, she knew my work, she knew I was a dedicated student, she knew my work professionally, and she thought I'd be someone that could help her law partner. So this woman is now still a professor at Central. I saw her yesterday. She's the mayor of Carborough now, so now She and her law partner like kind of swapped. He was Mayor Chapel, she's now Mayor Corporal. And I went over to her yesterday and I said, I'm going to tell this story tomorrow. Because there's no way in the world I would have ever thought that she would be a person to recommend me for a job. I'm looking to my professors, the people who are grading me, who are seeing me 3 nights a week. I would have never thought that. So you never know who's watching. So why be afraid to shine? Why hide your assets and the things you do well? Because you never know who's watching and may say, this is someone I want to work for me, someone I want to work with, or someone I can recommend. So those where those two merge. The next thing I'll say to you is take risks. That job was not your typical job that people said you should get coming out of law school, right? At that time, I was looking for jobs in little small firms. I knew I didn't want to do the big firm route, so I was looking for, jobs at firms that did family law or firms that were doing just basic contract law. That's what I was looking for. So when she comes with this opportunity, I'm like, yeah, I like politics, but where could this take me? This would be a risk because I'm not leaving law school and going right into a job that people will assume you need a JD for. But I took that risk. It was something different. It was something I felt I could make something of, and I could leverage that position to do other things. And lo and behold, it turned out that Mayor Favel at the time was a graduate of North Carolina Central University's law school. He was really good friends with my boss. They were the two mayors that hung out and talked a lot to each other. And when an opening at Fayetteville State for Director of Government and Community Affairs came open, I mentioned it to him, and the next thing I knew, I had an interview. So again, I took a risk going into a totally different direction I knew nothing about, and then I ended up with a job that I then leveraged into other jobs. So again, don't be afraid to take risks. Now, don't do anything crazy, right? We don't want to do anything that's going to harm you or put you in, and that's going to make you have to challenge your moral center, right? But you want to just you have time to do something different. Don't feel rushed. Feel out other opportunities. And it's funny, going to DC was a risk for me. I worked my entire career in North Carolina. I always will call myself a New Yorker because I go home all the time. But I was like, I'm a property owner here. Why would my husband and I just decide to go to DC? But then why not? And again, another job where I was at an event, I spoke up at an event, and the CEO of the Association of Governing Boards was like, I like you, I think you'd be interested, I have this job, come talk to me about it. And literally that's how I got a job. So we just packed it up. And we have a little apartment in Arlington, and we come home to North Carolina at least once a month. And it's a risk, right? It's just, DC is crazy. But it was a risk for us to just uproot our life and everything we've known, Durham, since we got out of school, all we knew was Durham, and do that. But I think for me, it was a great risk. For my current boss, he'll tell you it's a good risk because he said as soon as I took the move to go to AGB, he was like, oh, when I recruit her, I don't have to pay for her to relocate because she's here in DC now. So it is a great, so for me, it turned out to be something great, and for you, take that risk. You can say, I'm going to do this for a couple of years and then come back where you're more comfortable. But don't be afraid to take risks. The next thing I'll say to you is nurture your chip. I have, and I will always have, a chip on my shoulder. And I nurture that chip every day. For any person that ever said they didn't think I could do, for anybody that may have rolled their eyes at me in 5th grade, I remember stuff like that. I'm petty with a little P like that, yes. I nurture that chip every day. For everyone who says an HBCU student graduate of undergrad or HBCU law school graduate can't do and can't get into these places and can't do that, I nurture that chip every day. I don't linger on it, but it's there. And it keeps me moving forward. It keeps me trying to do the next best thing and thinking about what's the next move. I never get complacent. I'm always, and I'm like that with my friends. I was on the phone with one of my law school classmates last night, and something real simple. She never saw herself as joining our district bar board. And I said, oh, you'd be great for the board. I'm going to nominate you. And so now she's on the board. She's doing great work because she's somebody that has a JD, an MBA, and a CPA. And so she's their treasurer now, and she's doing all these things with them. And I'm like, yep, I'm going to need you to do this one more year, and then I'm going to need you to run for president. And so last night she's like, what? I said, I've charted your path for you. And I do that for my friends, and I think they do that for me, right? You got to see, you have to always be on the grind, right? We call it, the nice, calm people in DC call it grit. We call it hustle. You got to always have that hustle. You got to always be figuring out what the next move. And remember, when your friends are placed well, you are placed well. I'm going to say it again. When your friends are placed well, you are placed well. I take advantage of every opportunity of my friends. I'm like, oh, you work here? Mm-hmm. I'm going to that. I'm going. And I support them, right? And so I have already charted that path to her. I have another friend. I heard that she's got a promotion in the works. I'm going to call her tonight, and I'm going to tell her you need to ask to have this person report to you. Because I see that. I've worked on a campus. I've worked in a system office. I know it makes sense, and I'm going to go advise her to do that, right? So you always got to think that someone else doesn't know your value, and you got to remember that chip on your shoulder and keep it moving. Because for every HBCU student coming behind you, when they see you do things they could have never imagined an HBCU student do, they want to do it. And they believe they can do it. And you are the best example because they're like, she did it, he did it. We don't talk about it a lot. I'm sure there's all this drama about the HBCU president's meeting with the president in the president's office earlier this year. All of you know about that? Okay. So that picture ended up on the front of the Washington Post, New York Times, and all that, right? So I was there, right, in the Oval Office, right there standing around the desk, and people will say what they want to say about that, right? But when I left that office and went back to the east part of the executive office building for the meeting that was really supposed to happen, I texted my mother, because we couldn't have our phones where we were, right? So as soon as I got my phone back, I opened it up and I texted my mother and I said, your child just left the Oval Office. Because no matter what other people say about that meeting, right, there are very few people in this world who are going to get an opportunity to be in the Oval Office of the United States of America, right? And even fewer that look like us, right? So I wasn't going to let anybody steal that part, because that right there, you ain't gonna get, you can talk all you want, but you're not gonna get to do that, right? And then the picture's on the front of the paper, and it's crazy, right? And in the end, there's a strategy to everything. So the problem with people in general now with social media is everybody has an opinion about everything. But if you understand the work that we do in government relations, you understand there's a strategy, and you understand that you don't meet everybody you meet every day is not somebody that you would go have coffee with, that you go to church with, that you dine with, or that you would call your friend, right? But everyone has a need, and everyone needs to meet their need, and you have to do what you have to do. And every once in a while, there's a win. And the sacrifices you made to get to that win are well worth it. But you also need to take time to enjoy those personal wins that you didn't even think you were going to get, that put you in places that other people will never get to. And you need to say, I'm that HBCU student, and I'm here. So keep the chip, keep the hustle. Always know you got to do better than everybody else, because there's always that one ignorant person that will try to pull that from you and take it from you by saying, oh, well, you went to an HBCU. And at some point, it just doesn't even matter. Look, I'm at the point in my career, people don't even ask you where you go to school, where you went to school anymore, which is crazy. You never think you'll get there, but there is a point you get where people don't even care where you went to school. It is your work, it is your shine, it's what you do and how you do your work that people pay attention to. The next thing I'm going to say to you is work hard, but play strategically. You live in a world where everybody knows what you do. Instagram, Facebook, everybody, Twitter. Everyone knows where you are at all times. People are tagging you everywhere. And so you're going to work hard, and I think you should play. You should enjoy the fruits of your labor. Use your money to go vacation. You need that time to refuel. You need that time. Christmas break, that was a great thing about working on the campus. When the school shuts down, Christmas break, those 2 weeks, I sit on the couch I watch all the Judge TV I want to watch and laugh at these people's lives. You're like, gosh, people really live like that in America? It is crazy, but you need that kind of nonsense. You need those types of things so that when you are back and you're refueled, you can deal with what you have to deal with every day, right? But you gotta insert in your play sometimes strategic things. So I sit on the board of the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association, and I am by no means entertainment and sports lawyer. But back in law school, I had an interest, so I would go to the conference as a student. And then it became fun because their conferences are always in the Caribbean. So every year, my friends and I were like, we're just gonna keep going back because we know we get one vacation a year when we go to the conference. But what we also did was make sure we went to the workshops, met the people who were there and already working, because you never know. And we had a mentor that said to us, it doesn't matter right now that you don't work in sports entertainment. The thing you have to do is be the best lawyer you can be. And then you can adapt that to anything. So we just kept going back. And then when I started working in higher ed, they said, we have a scholarship committee. Since you work in higher ed, why don't you sit on the scholarship committee? Okay. And then when we figured out how to make our scholarships work, they said, oh, we need somebody who understands this on the board, so why don't you join the board? So now I sit on the board. And so I get to have friends that have really cool jobs, and I get to go to stuff like BET Awards, and I get to do stuff with them, and that's play for me, right? But it's strategic play, right? Because if I need something, and I need someone to go DJ an event, or I need someone to perform, I know I can call their lawyer. Right, whenever we were all gushing over the New Edition movie, right, I knew Bobby Brown was getting a spinoff that next day. Because the lawyer that does the deal sits on the board with me. And we were all sitting there talking about it. Like, what's next, right? Bobby Brown's movie. So before everybody else knew, we knew about it, right? When you play, figure out a way to play that gets you exposed to people in different areas. Because you just never know when those relationships can help you out. So I say, work hard, but play strategically. And don't play to the point where I see the bad stuff you do on LinkedIn, well, hopefully not on LinkedIn, but on Twitter and on Facebook, right? Because I'll tell you right now, when I worked for the UNC system, when we would interview students just to be our fellow for a year, it was a one-year fellowship, I would make the current students sitting in that role troll them on social media. Because you were not going to come in our office, and I know you don't know how to control yourself. So I don't think I have to tell all of you who knew how to dress well here today and present yourself today that you need to control your image on social media. Because there are people like me, I'm a lurker. So I am that person. You won't see me post a lot, but I'll lurk and I'll find out what's going on in people's lives. And there are a lot of people like us who do that. So you need to understand that as well. The last thing I'll say to you is, don't be afraid to walk away. And I'll say that in your personal and in your professional relationships. And I always tell this story. I'm a very proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. I was initiated as an undergrad. I love my chapter. I currently sit on the board of directors for our sororities Educational Advancement Foundation, so I'm very active. But I will tell you, I served as a vice president of the chapter that I was a member of. And all I wanted to do, I'm very competitive, you probably haven't realized that, is there's this award for chapter programs. And my goal is, if I'm in charge of chapter programs, is we should get this award at the end of my tenure. And I was focused on that. We were going to get that award. What I wasn't focused on, and because probably I have two sisters, so I did not join a sorority for the whole sisterhood piece. Again, my thing was, I'm in school, networking is great. Now, luckily, the people who are now my closest friends turn out to be members of the sorority, probably because we're always together. But that wasn't my reason for joining. And so I'm always about the business of Alpha Kappa Alpha. But it is a sisterhood, and some people have feelings. And I'm obviously not the most considerate and feeling person. So I did not get reelected for a second term. I did not. And my feelings were really hurt because I put a lot, because I wanted to win this award. So there's like a year lap, right? So we do win an award as a result of my work as vice president, so I feel vindicated, right? But I actually walked away after that because I felt some kind of way. I said, you know what, I love my sorority, I really do. I said, but if people don't understand that this was about the business of getting our chapter out there and getting this award, and they weren't caught in their feelings, I don't know what I could do, so I'm just gonna walk away. And so I stopped coming to chapter meetings. I still pay my dues, but I was like, on Saturdays, I'm just gonna spend with my husband on second Saturdays. So I'm gonna do something else, and people are like, oh, you need to come back? Oh, I'm not gonna come back. I walked away from that. I know, it's petty with a little p, I know. But the moral of this story is, the next thing you know, I decide, oh, I wanna do something different professionally. I wanna take all that energy that I was using to win this award for the chapter, and I wanna channel it into something else. And so the next thing you know, I'm getting a call from someone saying, I want an assistant vice president for federal relations, and I want you to do the job. Not you have to apply the job. I've seen your work. You work well. I like working with you. I want you to come to Chapel Hill and be an assistant vice president in the UNC system. And at the time, I was at Fayetteville State. I was commuting, taking a risk. I was commuting every day, 90 minutes between Durham and Fayetteville while I worked at Fayetteville State. So I become one of only 2 black people with vice president in my title at the UNC system at this time, right? And because I had refocused my energy and walked away from this other thing, right? I had all this energy to put back into my job and to do this and do extra, and someone saw my shine. They saw me, and the next thing I know, I've got that job. So sometimes when you walk away, even if it is for petty reasons, sometimes it's okay and you can feel good walking away because you never know, you're gonna have to find another place for that energy. You gotta walk away from people that suck your energy too, right? As you ascend, your circle is gonna get smaller. I'm gonna say that again. As you ascend, your circle is gonna get smaller. And I'm gonna tell you why. You're gonna get busier. You're gonna have more work commitments. You're going to double down on those closest to you because you want to make sure those relationships stay good. So you're going to be double down on your parents. Your parents are going to get older, so you're doubling down on what's going on with them. You're doubling down on the person who you're living with at home every day, your spouse, your significant other, because you want to make sure, because if that's not right, you can't move. You know, if you've got stuff going on personally, it's messing with all of this, right? And so as you're focusing on those relationships that are the closest to you just by the nature of those titles, the other relationships, the ones that don't really matter, that aren't as deep, will fall off. And you gotta let them go. And if that person believes the relationship is as deep as it is, that they believe it's deeper than what you do, they'll put the work in to do that. But it's okay to have a small circle. And it's even better when your small circle is deep and they connected and they have good jobs that you can benefit from, right? But again, if your circle is your network is your net worth. We were talking about it this morning, and I can't tell you how important that is. Your network is your net worth. Who you can pick up the phone to call when you need something or when you want to know something is so important. And it's even better when you have a deeper relationship with that person, because they'll never question why you need their help or that you're using them for this or that. So it's very important that you understand that it's okay to shed things in people. I'm still very active in my sorority. And look, I live in DC now, but I come home for chapter meetings, so I'm back. You know, I had to do the whole circle. I had to get out of my feelings too. But I needed that experience, and I had to let it go. If I'd not let it go, I could have missed, my energy could have been sitting every day, every second Saturday, sulking and chastising the new administration, right? I could have used my energy to do that. Instead, I reinvested in me and my professional worth, and that turned out to be the best decision. So don't question when things happen. You know, failures, people say a failure is a setup for something's a setup for a comeback or something. What is it? A setback? Yeah, a setback is a setup for a comeback. There we go. I believe it, yeah. Because every time there's something I wanted, every time and you have a failure, you just have to sometimes I was talking to a colleague this morning, sometimes you just have to sit still and just wait and see what happens. So I'll say all that to say that you are embarking on a path that can be so fruitful for you, but not just you, for your friends, your family, those that care for you, and don't forget for the institution in which you are going to matriculate. Because they recruit students based on the reputation of their graduates to some extent. And you want to be that student that they call to come back and talk to the new law students. You want to be that student that has the capacity to write a check to your law school, or if not your law school, to your undergraduate institution, because if you go to a HBCU and you are not writing a check, that's a problem. I'm going to say it again. If you've gone to an HBCU and you're not writing a check, that's a problem, and don't complain when they start to close. Because any organization that's going to invest in an organization is going to look at what the people who should care the most about that organization are doing for it. So you need to put yourself in a position so that you can give back and you can be of value to your community. Someone said earlier, we need more lawyers that look like us. And so we can't be deterred by what the press and what others are saying about the value of a law degree today. Because in their mind, the value of a law degree is you go work at a big firm and you make money for someone else while you work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And our version of getting a law degree and being a lawyer should be, I'm someone that's making my life better and other lives better. And I'm doing a job that may not necessarily need a JD, but I'm making it work for me. So ladies and gentlemen, make this journey work for you. Do the best you can do. Find the school that meets your needs. Don't overpay. It is a marketplace. Understand that you got to pay back those loans, and so you need to start thinking on the front end, and that at some point down the line, no one's going to care what the name of the school is that you attended for law school. They just want to care about the value of your work that you're doing for them. And I thank you for your time today.